to do. One of the defensive coaches came up to me, and it kind of made me mad that he was like, I was in Detroit with Megatron, but you're not there yet. In my mind, I'm not trying to be Megatron. I'm trying to be me. So, had a little chip on my shoulder the whole game.
Was that Jim Schwartz?
Yes, sir.
All right, Brandon. He's like this defensive coach came up. Was it the defensive coach? Yes, sir, that was him. What'd you make of DK saying that fueled him going into the game last night?
That's classic Jim Schwartz. I had some amazing battles against him. We used to talk pregame when I played for the Chicago Bears and he was head coach of the Detroit Lions. I absolutely hated going against him and his defensive guys. He actually tries to get in the top players' heads. I know he came out afterwards and said, well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I think he did. He had to go poke the bear. This is a guy that already has a chip on his shoulder. This is a guy that's 6'4", who runs a 4.3, who's quick, who can run routes, has amazing hands, and he has Russell Wilson throwing the ball. Like, really, that's what you do? You go poke the bear, and then you play Darius Slay one-on-one with him? No, bad recipe, Nick.
So... listen, I'm no huge big fan of Jim Schwartz, but I believe him here. I think Schwartz was trying to give him a compliment, saying like, hey man, I was with Megatron. You remind me of him. Now you're not Megatron yet, but you well could be on your way. To me, this was, as soon as I saw the DK Metcalf press conference and saw what Schwartz said, it reminded me of Michael Jordan creating fake beefs to motivate himself. Yep. And then I found out DK Metcalf thought of the same thing. Show the tweet. DK Metcalf, after the game, when he talks about it, he basically acknowledges, yeah, this is me getting my MJ on. He tweets this out, and I took that personally. He was trying to say something nice, man. He compared you to one of the most dominant receivers of all time. And by the way, just on a statistical note, Calvin Johnson, his second year, had 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 yards per catch. DK Metcalf this year is on pace for 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 yards per catch. So Schwartz might be on to something, but I don't think it was supposed to be an insult. I really think he was trying to be nice to him.
I totally agree. All right, Brandon, here's a question for you. So now we know that DK Metcalf is listening at least and being motivated this. So the sword could cut both ways. Now I feel like there are things that you can say. If you can fire him up, maybe you can push him down a little bit. Because it reminded me of a different quote. There's an old NFL films tape of Bill Belichick talking to Chad Johnson. And they go over and say, hey, how are you doing? Great. He's like, yeah, you can take the day off today. He goes, what do you mean, coach? He's like, no, we call the play. It's double whatever. And he's like, no. It's like, no, take the day off. Have a nice day. And it feels like that can get into a player's head because Chad is, Chad's like, a showman, but he's like, ah.
Yeah, but Chad and Belichick had a great relationship.
So
no, go ahead. What's the question?
If you were DK Metcalf, or if you were you and I was the coach, is there anything I could say to you that would throw you off your game? And be honest. Don't just be like, I'm Brandon Marshall. Is there anything I could say to throw you off your game?
Yeah. Well, first, maybe Jim Schwartz, Coach Schwartz, intentions were pure. Maybe they weren't ill. But you can't say that to a player. You can't say you're not there yet. You're not Megatron. Are you kidding me? I don't care if you say you compare me to Jerry Rice. If I'm in my mode before the game and you come up to me and tell me what I'm not, of course I'm gonna have a chip on my shoulder. Now, is there things that can get into players' heads? 100%. But those aren't the good players. The good players understand how to straddle the fence. They understand how to control their emotions. So you want to get close to it where you're almost out of control. But once you lose control, it's a wrap. I think DK Metcalf is one of those guys who's treading lightly. If you watch all of his games, he's a high energy guy. He's super emotional, but he also doesn't go too far. So I don't think he's that type of guy that you can get in his head.
So this is so fascinating. And Jenna, I know we have to move on, but I want to quickly ask Brandon a question, if we can put Brandon up again. I think most people would agree the gold standard for athlete turned broadcaster is Charles Barkley. I think most people, I don't know how you feel, you and I have never talked about this, but he's on everybody's high list. Are you telling me, Brandon Marshall, if somebody said to you, some television executive or something, was like, Brandon, I've been watching First Things First. I've been watching Inside the NFL. I got to tell you, I love what you're doing. Now, you're no Barkley, but you could be on your way. Would you walk out of that meeting like that son of a... I cannot... Or would you take it as a compliment? Like, would it make you mad, or would you take it as a compliment?
No, I'm going to have a chip on my shoulder, and I'm going to go work hard, and I'm going to go do a phenomenal job. Obviously,
That's
I can.
amazing.
Yes, of course.
That's
of
amazing.
Course, I'm going to take it personal.
That's an amazing mentality.
I love
That's
that.
a great mentality. I respect
100%.
it. It's just amazing. That's amazing.
So, with that chip, let us just keep broadcasting, Brandon. Let us work our way up to Sir Charles. So let's talk about Seattle. Seattle gets the win. They're now 8-3. They're first place out west. Are the Seahawks
shots. You
the
see that?
most
Jenna just took a
dangerous
shot
team?
at me.
No,
I know.
She said,
Are
"Where's my
they
way
the
up to
most
Charles
dangerous
Barkley?"
team?
She did. Oh my goodness.
It's a lateral work. It's a lateral shift. Shift your way over. It's a lateral move. Are the Seahawks the most dangerous team in the NFC? Their offense has been clicking. Now their defense seems to be clicking the last couple of weeks. Brandon, what do you think? This the most dangerous team out west?
It could be. It could be. Let's go back to Week 10. What happened in Week 10? You got Jamal Adams back, and he wasn't completely healthy. You got Damian Snack Harris. I talked to Snacks in the summertime. I'm like, what are you doing this year? He said, I'm going to let the old body rest up, and I'm probably going to come back next year. Then all of a sudden, Week 5, Week 6, he's taking trips, and then he ends up in Seattle. I don't even think he's in, tip-top shape yet. And then you got, Carlos Dunlap that comes in. The last 4 games, he has 3.5 sacks. And what happened since Week 10? They're only giving up 20 points a game. So with that being said, and when you're looking at what's happening on offense, 100% they can become the biggest threat in the NFC. But they still have some questions that they have to answer. You got Chris Carson that's back healthy, and he's back in that lineup. You saw him last night. He only got a few plays, but he looked different. There's some guys, when you turn on the tape and you turn on film, they just jump out at you. And Chris Carson is that. So that's going to make that offense even more dynamic.
So I think it's all about the defensive turnaround. Through the first 9 weeks of the season, they were allowing 27 a game and allowed at least 23 points in every single game they played. Since then, they have not allowed more than 23 points once, and you mentioned it, Brandon, allowing 20 points per game. But it even predates these last few weeks. I've got an amazing stat that is going to blow Kevin Wilde's mind. Can we show... Three different teams' pass rushes over the last 5 weeks. Identical quarterback hits, discrepancy in sacks, similar sack percentage. Show me those 3 teams, please. Last 5 games. It is the Seahawks, the Steelers, and the Saints. So the Seahawks, the most sacks, almost the highest sack percentage, and neck and neck with the Saints across the board, who is the other biggest competition in the NFC once the Saints stop starting a tight-ended quarterback. So, Wilds, I think the old sneakerhead with only one sneaker might be finding another shoe as far as what they can do defensively.
I guess so, but it's hard to judge them going against the mighty Eagles offensive line. And when you look at their schedule, Christmas comes early. We got Colt McCoy coming up. Then we got the Jets, the old New York 1-2. Then Washington, then Goff, and then Nick Mullins and the 49ers. So they've got a chance to feast. Little Christmas. We have Christmas music. Dun, 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 dun. Seahawks get a bunch of Patsy teams to play. Dun, 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 dun. The Seahawks defense will look good. But I don't know, once we get to the playoffs, Nick, I actually think it could backfire, that some of the mistakes that they were going to be allowed to get away with here could rear up in the playoffs.
Well, Brandon, here's the issue, and I think this is going to come down all of the NFC is whenever we discuss any of the teams, we're going to butt up against this. There isn't a great team in that conference. There are a handful of pretty damn good teams, but there's not one team that you look at and say they don't have at least one obvious flaw. And so because of that, I don't think the Seahawks defense has to be excellent. I just think they have to not be horrible, because Green Bay's got an obvious flaw. New Orleans has an obvious flaw. Like, there is not a team that you look at and say, yep, in the AFC, you can say the Chiefs and the Steelers both look pretty damn great. I don't think you can say that about anyone in the NFC.